Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Tommy Trump. First in the chat there. Paul messaged me the other day and he said, John, will Labour last till the next general election? So that's what we're going to get into tonight, guys. Will Labour last? Now, if you've been following us past few weeks, we've talked about Jeremy Corbyn's Your Party. And I was doing a bit of research, and in 2015, Labour had 45 seats out of 60 in Oldham Council. And now they're on 27. And that's since 2015. So it's been going down. Some years more than others. The past few years are certainly a lot more. And with everything that Kier Starmer's done, and he's just come out with saying that Palestine is recognising Palestine as a state, and in all desperation to keep his voters. But it's not going to end up like that. More people are turning away to the Labour Party. They're joining other parties, running as independents. Jeremy Corbyn's Your Party. There's a lot of activity in Oldham over Your Party. Obviously, Reform are smashing it. They're highlighted to grab in the polls 13 of the Member of Parliament seats in Greater Manchester, including Angela Rayner's. So, and I've been saying on streams, we've all agreed more or less throughout the past couple of years on our streams that Labour's struggling, guys. Labour is absolutely struggling. Paul, what do you think? Will they last?
Well, before Trump arrived, I don't know if you saw Trump's speech today at the United Nations. It's an amazing speech. Well, before Trump came to visit King Charles, and it took some pressure off Starmer. Starmer was under incredible pressure at that point. Angela Rayner had gone. Peter Mandelson had just gone. There's a lot of pressure now on McSweeney. McSweeney is sort of who organises his office, organised his election campaign. McSweeney's family are heavily involved with the asylum seekers, looking after them in Ireland. They're making like £10 million a year, €10 million a year, catering for these bogus asylum seekers or whatever you want to call them. But he was under a lot of pressure, Starmer, and Trump's taken a bit of the immediate pressure off him because the attention's gone over to Trump, and it allowed Starmer to look for once like some sort of prime minister, although he's a total joke. But Trump told him he had to stop the boats and he had to secure the border. Now, securing the border is not difficult. Trump has done it in America. He just said, that's it. No more illegal immigrants. You won't be allowed across the border. If you come across, you'll be taken back immediately. So they stop coming because they know America's no longer the soft touch. But here's Britain, the suckers of the world. They're still inviting them in. And they're using all this excuses like they're blocked by the courts from sending them back on the planes and stuff. But this is all a game because we've just heard that Starmer has just flown in from Syria over 100,000 refugees, flown them in under cover of the night. Over 1 million immigrants a year are pouring into Britain, and they've basically got a monopoly now on our social housing. So the British people are being pushed out of their own welfare state. This is the problem. Labour now are in a fiscal crisis. The government's purse. The taxes do not cover the expenditure. And Labour are increasing government expenditure by the day. And the money is being spent on the immigrants that are pouring in. It's not being spent on the British people. The British people are just like a cash cow, but we've got no cash because wages are stagnant now. Inflation is still high. The cost of living crisis is still going on. Food inflation is running at nearly 10% per annum. So people are being hit in the pocket. You go into a supermarket now and try and buy a steak or a piece of lamb. You're looking at 10, 12, 15 quid. It's so expensive, you know. Eat out, cost a fortune. Inflation is still at nearly 4%, and yet interest rates are still high. So the property market's it's certainly stagnant. So people are feeling pressure from every point now. And all Labour are doing is demanding more taxation. We've got a budget coming up. Rachel Reeves, the lady from accounts, claims to be a top economist, hasn't got a clue. The first budget messed up the economy. The second budget could absolutely torpedo the economy. And this is why Labour are unlikely to survive, because the economic headwaters are ferocious. They're going to run out of money. Last month, Labour borrowed £18 billion. The previous month, it was £16 billion. The month before, it was £14 billion. See a pattern? The borrowings are going up through the roof. And what are they borrowing money for? To pay the interest on the debt we already have. We've got $11 trillion of debt in this country. It's monetarized in dollars. I mean, in sterling, that would be about six trillion. That's more than our gross domestic product. And the cost of interest payments on that alone are crippling the government. So they've got to get a grip of public spending. And this is what will cause the Labour government to crash, because the left will not allow cuts in public spending. We've already seen that over PIPs. But they've got the state's too big. It's just like a cancer, and it's taken over our whole society. We're just basically feeding this state. Now, the government are spending more and more on things like health, education, benefits, housing, but they're not getting any improvement in productivity. The more they pour into the NHS, it's like pouring water into the sand. It doesn't get any better. The more they pour into education, the outcome is no better. The more they pour into benefits, more people stay on benefits. There's 5 million people who are not unemployed but are living on benefits, and they're not looking for work. And then you've got the housing situation, desperate shortage of housing, but it's been given to immigrants. So the British people are really in rebellious mode now. And when these taxes come, the problem is, if the government runs out of money, if the government can't finance this burgeoning welfare state, which has been totally colonised by the immigrants, it's their first now priority for everything. It's a two-tier welfare state, and the immigrants get the first priority. If the government can't finance this, and there's no growth in the economy, so they put taxes up, and there's less money available. They get less return because companies are laying off workers, unemployment's rising. So they're not getting the income to finance this increasing expenditure. So they're having to borrow. But the problem with the borrowing is it's too high, and they can't afford the interest payments now. And the markets are reluctant to lend to the Labour government, so they're demanding higher and higher interest rates. They're going to hit a crunch, a new credit crunch. And they're going to turn to the likes of the IMF to bail them out, but there's no money there. All the money now is going to America because of Trump's tariffs, and America's got the booming economy. People want to invest in America because they've just cut taxes. People won't invest in countries with high and rising taxes. And that's what Labour always produces. So Labour have totally scuttled our economy. And so the MPs, the Labour MPs, they've got a big majority. All they're going to be asked to do is vote for welfare cuts. And these women on the Labour ranks, they won't vote for it. They just, as he showed with Pips, I mean, he can sort of whip them in to vote, but if they won't vote, they won't vote. And he can't put up taxes. So he's in a catch-22 situation. And this is going to cause friction and fissures, division right through the Labour ranks. They're turning on each other now. And people are already saying Starmer is finished. We've got the May elections. When are they, John? May 2026. Massive 4,000 seats, council seats in England. The 32 boroughs of London are up for election. The Welsh Assembly, the Synod, the Scottish Parliament, It's a massive election in May, and Labour could literally get wiped out because not only are they leaking huge number of votes to Reform, they're also leaking a huge number of votes to the Lib Dems and the Greens and all sorts of. I mean, we've just seen their by-elections in Newnham in London, this new sort of Muslim independent party, which was the prototype for Corbyn. I don't know what's happening with his party, but they don't want to vote Labour. Nobody wants to vote Labour at the moment. So they're unpopular. Nobody wants them. They're doing an awful job. They're leading us into a crisis. And therefore, can they really survive for 4 more years? Because what's their programme? What's the point of this Labour government, John? Any ideas on that?
No, there's no point to it all. They're really backwards. I just want to throw in there, Andy Burnham sort of like launched a scathing attack on Starmer, and he's sort of like inside the Labour Party, he's starting his own sort of like group, and I believe
Faction,
he's definitely gonna try and run for the top job, Andy Burnham, and so it's big. And with all this going on, the pressure on the Labour Party, like you said, is absolutely tremendous. I don't think, personally, they'll last till the next general election. But if they do, they are going to lose very badly. Really lose very badly. The next couple of local elections that we have across the country will be a big key indicator on this. What's going to happen to Labour. And I think they'll lose more councillors. And then by the next general election coming, they're going to lose a good chunk of their members of parliament. So it's happening, guys. And, we're telling you, but you only have to look at the media and the papers. Paul's mentioned about Jeremy Corbyn's Your Party. He's talked about the turning traditional Labour voter, turning away from Labour, especially the immigrants, Muslims, Pakistanis and that, because they're not going to get nothing out of Labour. And they're sort of like going to their own independent groups. Now, I'm not too mired me because there's no group that's going to come out and just win the government straight away. Greens are getting a bit of a surge in the people who join them. And I'm guessing the Lib Dems will have a bit of a surge as well. But, on social media, on paper, and the statistics tell you that Labour are going to do absolutely terrible the next few years. Local council seats and the general election. And I'm very sure on it. Now, is Andy Burnham right for the top job at the moment? I can't think of anyone else within Labour who would be decent enough to fit in the leadership position. I'm not a big fan of Andy Burnham, but I've managed to have interactions with Andy Burnham supporting someone who needed help. And we managed to get to Andy Burnham. We've had 3 meetings, and he has, to some extent, he has helped this constituent of his, Bernie, great supporter of mine and everything. Big shout out to Bernie, and we'll catch up soon. But yeah, and I've seen a bit of a different side to him also. When we was doing the MERS question times, Andy Burnham was there through all them, and he handled them really well, guys. I've got to say, considering the topics that were up and things that got mentioned, he's had to sit through meetings with about child sexual exploitation, the CAS tax that they was going to do and stuff across Manchester, but he's handled them well. And, he's better than David Lammy, Kier Starmer and Sadiq Khan, in my opinion. So, if he goes for the Labour seat, fair enough. I'm going to fight against it because it's Labour, but I'm not going to fight against it because it's Andy Burnham. So
he's got a problem, though, John. He's not actually an MP. He's got to win a seat. And the seat that he's thinking of doing, Middleton and Greater Manchester, is actually quite a marginal seat. And Reform are very popular. I mean, Nigel Farage is getting very trenchant with his stuff now. He's saying immigrants who come to the country will not be able to access the benefit system. They will not receive long-term right of residence or whatever. He's going to really clamp down on it. Now, if Andy Burnham can't get a seat, he can't be the Labour Party leader. I mean, he's a professional politician, so, you'd expect him to be able to handle situations. But he's got no big idea, Andy Burnham. What's the point of being in government if you don't know what you want to actually achieve? I mean, it's more of the same as far as Labour go, and it's not what the British people want. The British people want their borders secure, they want their taxes cut, they want a welfare state there for the British people, not for the whole world to screw. Now, what they've done, since Blair, they've farmed out control of our government to, legal experts on the greenhouse gases or, climate change or immigration, international law. They're giving more power to the Supreme Court. What a name that is, Supreme Court. The monarch is supreme in this country, not a court. And they're saying that, Labour can't control immigration because of these international rules, especially the European Court of Human Rights. But if you're the government, if you want to withdraw from these international obligations, or if you want to overrule these courts of law, or even alter the constitution, the government has the power to do that. You can do that. The thing is, the Labour Party doesn't want to. You see, the politicians in Parliament, really, to me, they don't want to take responsibility for our country. They want to hand it on to somebody else. This is what's happened after being in the EU for so long. We've started to think that somebody else is actually responsible for our country. They're not. We are responsible for our country. And the power ultimately lies, not even in Parliament, it lies in the people. That's what the English Civil War was all about. Where does power ultimately lie? And the judgment was that the people are sovereign under God. The people under God are sovereign. Under God's important because the people cannot be totally crazy. They have to be sane. They have to respect the laws of God, which are the Ten Commandments. Sadly, we've moved a long way from that. But this is what Christian nationalism is about, coming back under God's sovereignty and being the people and exerting ourselves. Now, if the people want an end to this mass immigration, if the people want to reclaim our welfare state for British people, put us first, if we want to win back our social housing, if the people don't want to live in an Islamic republic or any sort of alien state, it's up to the people. We've got to assert ourselves. Now, we've got Nigel Farage and Reform, and they're claiming that they're fighting for this. This is their goal, but they've got to be, and they're becoming more explicit about this. The question is, will Farage, if he wins power, takes power, will he just be like the Tories? Now, this is important because the Tories, of course, have had no recovery. They're still at only a 15, 16% in the polls. Kemi is not connecting with anybody. It's ridiculous. But the Reform have come in, and they're claiming this, that they're the national party now, that they are the patriotic party. But that's got to be shown in action. Nigel Farage, he came into politics. When did he come in? 1999, he got a seat. When Labour went to proportional representation with the EU elections, he got his place in the European Parliament. And UKIP were a very small party then. But in 2004, in the European elections, the issue of immigration had become a big issue, with all the Poles coming over and the asylum seekers. And it was the BNP, really, who really raised this issue of immigration and the need to counteract it. And he rode to greater power, Farage, on the back of that. I mean, in 2004, the European elections, the BNP did well, but it was UKIP who picked up the seats in proportional representation. Although in 2009, of course, the BNP won seats in the European Parliament, but ultimately it was UKIP that went on to triumph, and they got us in 2015 general election, Cameron had to concede the referendum. So Farage fought that referendum with Vote Leave, with Boris, and won it. So it was an amazing rise to power for Farage. Now, he'd always wanted to create a party called Reform. Once the Tories totally failed to retake our sovereignty. I mean, there was no need for the Boris wave. We had control of our borders. If we don't want people to come into this country, we can withdraw from international obligations. We can stop any benefits. We can change the law. The people under God are sovereign. Parliament is to represent the people. Now we need the problem is the party system has meant it's gone from Tory to Labour to Tory, and it's just, it's all the same, the uni party. But if Reform are going to win power, they're going to have to be different. And of course, if they do get in power, if this Labour government does implode, which is highly likely, and sooner rather than later. I mean, Labour's got this massive majority. I think they got over 400 MPs, but they seem to be impotent. They don't seem to be able to do anything. Because what is their big idea? All they're doing is more of the same, making things worse and worse. And then when we call them into action, they blame something. They'll blame this or they'll blame that. But it's up to them to take decisive action. We saw exactly the same with Rishi Sunak. He just stalled. He just bluffed. He just blagged his way through. But in the end, he ran out of steam because he wasn't really achieving anything. And nobody knew what his direction of travel was. What was he trying to achieve? And it's already happened. It's happened so quickly with this Labour government. Nobody believes in it anymore, not even the Labour MPs themselves. What do you believe in? What are they offering? John, can you answer that question? What are Labour offering to the British people? Why are they in government? What are they trying to achieve?
Well, I mean, if people haven't been getting the gist of things, when this conflict started with Israel, it was I support Israel. All of a sudden now he's saying that the Palestine can be a state, when he should have said that really in the very beginning. And it's so obvious, Paul, that on his face that he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know how to get his voters back. He wouldn't have said that about Palestine if he didn't think he was going to get his Muslim voters back who have all left him. Honestly, people can see this. They can clearly see this, Paul, in the faces and the speeches of our politicians. And when Trump came over the other week and they did a load of speeches, Kier Starmer looked like he sounded like and looked like a really, the worst speaker in the world next to Trump. He couldn't say things properly. Things that he said just sounded so fake and stuff like that. I think he's struggling, Paul. I really do. I think they're looking at it, they're struggling, they're going harder attacking Farage because they know that Reform are going to do well. They are. That's what the statistics say. I don't have to we don't have to like Reform, but the statistics tell us that, guys. They tell us they're going to get Member of Parliament seats. They tell us that they're going to get council positions, not just Reform, independents, smaller parties like ours. We're so much filling that gap up now where it used to be just red, blue, a bit of green or whatever in the middle. That's changing, guys. The whole political landscape is changing, and Labour are frightened. Labour are quaking in the boots. They're quaking in the boots from people like Jeremy Corbyn. They're quaking in the boots because, unfortunately, they supported Israel from the very beginning of this conflict, which hasn't gone well for them, and that's quite an obvious thing that people can see. And they're struggling, and now he's throwing out, well, we'll do this, or we want to do this, or we'll support these people, because he knows he's going to lose a massive chunk of his Labour vote, which is specific. The Muslims, he's going to lose a lot of that voting, and they've gone over to the Greens. The Muslims are making their own independent groups, and they're standing as independents. I was fortunate last night to meet an independent Muslim candidate in Ashton-under-Lyne, and he's been a councillor for 2 years, does great work within the community. He's on his own. He's on his own. He's not so much part of like your party. He's an independent, and he's getting attacked off Labour left, right, and centre. And he's doing well, guys. He's doing well in his ward. His friend's going to be running next year as an independent, so hopefully they'll kick another Labour councillor out. But the kind of looks he gets, because he's running as a candidate against Labour, and if people seen them looks in the street now, you would think they were white supremacy looks. That kind of look that he said that they've said so many derogatory things about him. And these are Labour people who's supposed to be diverse and support everything. The way they treat him because he's not standing with them is unbelievable. There's going to be more coming up about this guy. There certainly is, and you just wouldn't believe it. And this is obvious to me. We've been talking about this over the past 1.5 years of the collapse in the mainstream parties. You heard, Paul, you've heard us every week say something that puts towards this. It's coming to that final section now, guys. Before the next general election, there's going to be all these by-elections. Reform are putting the feelers in, they're digging in hard in some councils. They've gone on about flags and stuff like that. They're making like the UK version of Doge, checking out how these councils spend. And if you would have said to me 15 years ago about our council, I would have said they spend all that money wrongly, and that it's all mates rates and stuff like that. In Oldham, a plot of land was sold, council land, for 50 grand. Less than 2 years later, that same plot of land was sold for over $1 million, and it's all connected to somebody within the council who's been a councillor. You know, this is what we've got to call out, this kind of corruption. We've gone on about it all the time, but Labour are on their knees.
Well, John, it's not only, you just talked about the Muslims there being disillusioned with Starmer, because he's played them on Palestine, hasn't he? I mean, he was very pro-Israel. Now he's recognised Palestine, even though the state doesn't even exist. It's all a farce, and it's made. This is the thing with Starmer: he doesn't actually believe in anything except being anti-British. Calling white people far right, he loves doing that. And this is the other people he's really alienated: the white working class. We no longer exist now in Britain. You know, there was two forces in British politics: the Tory party, which was the sort of national party for the whole nation, and the Labour Party, which was the People's Party. It was like supposedly the party for the working class. But the Labour Party doesn't care about the working class. They've abandoned the white working class in this country. They've gone pursuing the immigrant vote or the liberal middle classes, but they represent the public sector, public spending, the whole woke agenda, feminism, the gay lobby. You're talking about who's going to be the next Labour leader. They're talking about Wes Streeting. Now, obviously, he's a white male, but he's gay. This is the thing. All these Labour people, they all fit into this intersectionality. They're all part of this woke constituency. And the white working class don't exist anymore. They're just totally neglecting us now for social housing. It's making life very hard for people. They're totally neglecting us now for employment in the public sector. This is the Equality Act. It's giving priority to ethnic minorities, to immigrants, over the British people. So the British people have got to raise their voice. They've really got to assert themselves again. Now, reform support is largely from the white working class, but we're going to have to hold reform to account, because they are not really a white working class party. If you look at reform, the likes of Farage, he went to public school. Richard, the other guy, he was a public school boy. This guy that's just come over from the Tories, David Kruger, he's another. They're all public. He's an old Etonian. It's turning into a right wing Tory party, which, if it can stop immigration and cut taxes and create a better economy, would be a lot better than Labour. But is it the truly radical revolutionary party that we need? Because we've got to change a lot in this country. For too long, the British people have been pushed to the back of the queue on so many things. And this whole sort of anti-white agenda in education, that's got to be overthrown. White guilt. We've got to be proud of our nation again, proud of our achievements. This is what Trump is doing in America. He's raising patriotism. He's making people proud to be an American again. We need that spirit in Britain, that popular spirit. And of course, any people, any group of people are going to be immeasurably stronger if they have a faith. That's why Islam's taken so much territory. I mean, Tommy Robinson now is saying he's a man of faith. But I'm noticing in America with the MAGA movement, just how Christian it is, Christian nationalism, that, it's the nation and Christian morals, Christian values, Christian belief, which lifts people up, which binds them together. I mean, the notion of the communion service, we are one body because we all share in the one bread, which is Jesus Christ. That's what creates a community. If you don't have a central force like that, and of course we've lost the Church of England. The Church of England now is as woke as the Labour Party, and the same with the Methodists and a lot of the established churches. So we need some sort of a reform, a new reformation in the churches in this country. We've lost a lot. This country has slid back a long, long way, and now we're starting to feel the impact, because so many of our cities now are being totally transformed. And it's happening in Liverpool, I've just been in Ireland for 5 days. You come back to Liverpool and you look at it with fresh eyes, and it's being taken over. It's being colonized like so many cities, and Islamic colonization, Hindu colonization, African colonization. And it's changing our cities. We're losing our national cohesion. We're losing our sense of identity. It really is a crisis. I mean, Trump talked about this at the United Nations. He's saying this is how you destroy your own country. And this is what these politicians are up to, John. They're actively destroying our country. It's deliberate. They're serving some false god, which is calling on them to destroy the traditional British people and replace them with third world invaders from Africa, the Middle East, the Indian subcontinent, anywhere. But as Starmer made a speech and said, we're becoming a nation of strangers, which is obvious to anyone because we don't actually know who these people are who are coming in. If people just suddenly turn up from Guinea or Pakistan or the Middle East, we don't know who they are. Now, Trump has said that London's gone to hell. That's what he said. And he's talked about Sadiq Khan pushing Sharia law. These people have their own agendas, their own cultures, and we've got to come back to traditional Britain. And this is, Reform say they're the party of tradition. The National Housing Party, we've always stood as a Christian nationalist party. We've always stood on British history, our British heritage, and our Christian heritage. And we've got to hold Reform to account. Farage has got to listen to the British people. He's a winner politically, and we need it. We need to defeat Labour, but he's got to go beyond merely policies and tinkering with the system. Because if Reform get in power, they will face hostility from the state at every turn. The legal system will try and block everything they do. The civil service will try and block everything they do. The so-called blob, the media will be involved. And it'll be difficult for Reform to get anywhere. They're going to have to they're going to need popular support. They've got to bring the people on board. It's got to be a populist movement, because not only will Reform face opposition from within the state and within the judiciary, etc., they'll also face opposition on the streets, because all the privileges that the Muslims have acquired and other ethnic groups, they're not going to let those go easily. They'll be up. They'll be in rebellion if Reform try and deport illegals or deport anyone. There'll be a massive rebellion. The left will be involved in that. And reform, or any government, any popular government, any patriotic government, is going to need a force on the streets to counteract this. And you can't trust the police. The police have been turned into a sort of Marxist, politically correct, nonsense force. Even the army's been corrupted to an extent. So we're going to need to have to mobilize the British people. The British people, you see, we still think we can live in a comfort zone, that everything will pass and everything will be fine, but we're going down. We're going down rapidly. We're on a handcart to hell because the money's running out. You see, when Blair inherited from the Tories in 1997, he inherited a golden economy. So Labour could play their game. They could play this social revolution game of bringing in immigrants and globalising our society because they had the money to pay for it. They could actually finance this expansion of the welfare state. But the money's run out, John. The money has run out. Borrowing is too expensive. We have ongoing inflation. We have a cost of living crisis. People are under pressure. And that's going to be shown in the two big parties which have controlled our state, their history now. People resent them. So there's this real revolution ahead, John. And the British people are going to have to wake up, and we're going to have to assert ourselves afresh. I mean, what do you think with Tommy getting there? How many people were at that rally? And do you think, because it's the people that have got to rise, John? It's the people. Do you think Tommy's the man to bring the people out?
Well, no, he's part of the group, but you mean this flag thing has got more people rising up across the board. One of my friends putting flags up, and a woman come out, and obviously an old woman. She couldn't. She begged him to put a flag up on a lamppost, and he did. And one of the neighbours complained, but she's got a nice bungalow, so he's going to go and get her a flagpole, put it in a garden, and put a flag on it. Then nobody can tell her to take it down. But people are getting patriotic, and it's motivating people to get more involved in voting. Every angle, I never said that it's one angle, Paul. I'll say that street movements get people talking, get people learning and together and that. Obviously, you can start off being an activist, a political activist like we were, going to meetings, raising awkward questions in meetings and stuff like that, and towing the line. There's the people who believe in the Constitution. There's a lot of ways that we're helping change the country, but London was significant because it was so obvious, a bias in the media. Some people are seeing this and they're thinking, well, it's not like that. There was even people like that Trevor Phillips coming forward saying stuff, against the narrative. And there's more of that these days, Paul. I see big change across the board. And I'm not saying Tommy is the person to sort it out, but he's just helping by getting people together and doing these protests.
But the other dimension is Trump. Because obviously Trump has the microphone. Trump has the platform. He's the man who's on X. He's the man who's in the media. He's the man whose ideas are being listened to. And Trump is letting the establishment, especially across the Western world, know that he is not happy with mass immigration. He's not happy with the way our states are now becoming so politically correct, and the loss. Trump feels the loss of our civilization. I mean, he loved London. He was a regular visitor to London, and he's really shocked at how far down London has sunk. I mean, we've just seen in Washington, D.C. that he brought in the military, and he basically cleaned it up, didn't he? He got rid of, he said 1,700 professional criminals were removed. All the homeless people who were camping on the streets in Washington, D.C., he just hoovered them off, moved them out of town, said, you're not welcome here. You can go into institutions, but you're not going back on the streets. And Washington, D.C., people are saying it's like being back in the 1960s. The crime's gone. The street hassle's gone. Everything's clean again. People feel secure again. And it's such a radical transformation. And all it required was political willpower, was one strong leader. And all this can be changed overnight. This is the problem, you see, because the European elite, they presented this decline in our society, this increase in criminality, this mass invasion, all this sort of climate change nonsense. They presented it as unavoidable, as the future. That this they can't do anything about it, and this is how things are going to be, and this is the new one world order, and they forget about borders and all that. And Trump said, no, this is all a political choice. You're hoodwinking your electorate. And just as in America, see, America had the MAGA movement. That's what we need in this country. That's why that big march in London raised so much optimism in this country, because we saw the birth of a MAGA movement. And this is really where Farage has got to go. Farage has got to become a true populist. He's got to bring the people on board. Stop being such a control freak. Learn from Trump. You lead through ideas. You lead through personality. I'm not knocking Farage, because he's done exceptionally well to get into such a strong position. But he's got to put the British people first, and it's got to be a popular movement. At the moment, it's becoming a bit of a right-wing Tory movement. It's becoming a bit elitist, and he's got to connect with the people. Now, how could Farage connect with that march, John? He didn't criticise it, and he stopped criticising Tommy Robinson. But how is he going to connect with the ordinary people? I mean, maybe he's got to stop his cancel culture, stop blocking real nationalists from joining the reform movement, and widen his base to include the people, make it much more of a working class party. I mean, they don't use those terms in America. In America, it's just we the people. And really, that's what we need in this country. We need that to be amplified. It's we the people who are demanding representation in Parliament. We don't want someone to do it on our behalf. We've got to do it for ourselves. This is the people who've got to wake up and become engaged in the political process. How's he going to do that, John? How can Farage make that connection and bring that people's power, that people's energy to the centre of political life?
Well, very good question. And it's like you said, he's not connecting with working class people. He's just, the people jumping on board are just like already the tired, crappy politicians that we don't want in and stuff like that. He's not looking at, he should be changing the board. He should be rising people up who are the next generation of politicians, not sticking to the old flies, Paul, which he's doing. And unfortunately, like the British Democrats are a bit like that. They're sticking to the old flies. They're not looking for that new blood. You know what I mean? We definitely need that new blood. The type of politician who's bred in this century, who knows the working class well, knows our country, knows what he needs, straight talking. We're not getting that person in reform, unfortunately. And that's the very negative thing about it. And, so I would be looking at independent groups and smaller parties like the National Housing Party to rise them people up who are going to be our future politicians and stuff like that. We do a lot with the youth, and we have a lot of youth around our party, and I promote them and support them wherever I can, because they are going to be our next politicians. We don't want the bread rich politicians. We don't want them. We want people from the streets. I liked Andrew Bridgen, I liked Andrew Bridgen a lot. And I thought he was a different kind of politician. He wasn't mainstream, but he's been cancelled by the mainstream, hasn't he, for speaking out on the big
He's
scene.
still going, John.
It's still going.
He's still going, Andrew Bridgen. I saw him this week. He was exposing these flights that they're bringing in from Syria. Bringing in, I mean, you talk about people crossing the channel in boats. They're flying them in from all over the world, pseudo-refugees. Now, we had a guy on this stream, I think it was about 3 weeks ago, a guy called, what was his name? Hugh Anthony, was it?
Yeah.
And he spoke about the people. I asked him who inspired him politically. And he said it's the people that inspired him, the British people. And the British people really have got to come to the fore again. And that's what that demo was in London. That's why it's sent such a shock through the establishment. The people are waking up, because the people now know that we're in an existential crisis here. We're fighting for our very existence. This scale of immigration, these open borders, this takeover of our welfare state, it's putting our own people in jeopardy now. If you go to a hospital, to an A&E, or you're trying to get an appointment with a GP, or you go in for an operation, you have to wait. You have to wait 12 hours at least in A&E. The service is absolutely abysmal. Many of the doctors coming from the Indian subcontinent can't even speak English. What's happened there? What's happened to all the English doctors? What's happened to all the English nurses? It's like the whole NHS has been taken over by some sort of Indian stroke Pakistani mafia. It's crazy. And it's the same in schools now. There's 4,000 schools in this country where the British kids are in the minority. And they're basically foreign schools. And so, and we talk about, if you want to get a house, property is so expensive, but if you try and get social property, they'd say, oh, we'll put you on the waiting list. How long do you have to wait? 10 years. And then someone flies in from Eritrea or from Bangladesh or wherever, and they get a house almost straight away. I mean, Pat exposed that, didn't he, on National Housing Association, on his X account. There's a film footage there, a refugee family or whatever they were. I think they come from the Middle East. A husband, a wife, 3 kids. Straight away, they're given choice of which property they want. And there's sort of an English family turns up and they're told, oh, no, there's no room. You'll have to go on the list. Oh, you have to wait for years. And so we're being fobbed off here. We have paid our taxes through the decades to build up the welfare state, and it's now being stolen from us before our very eyes. Everything we value. I mean, the thing is, say you go for benefit as a British person. I don't know how you apply now. I think you'd have to apply online or whatever. The immigrants are getting legal support to make their benefit claims, and they're maximising their benefit claims. Lawyers are getting a mobility allowance, they're getting them home helps, they're getting them sort of extra support, maybe because PIP or maybe sort of disability. They're maximising the benefits these immigrants get. They look incredibly wealthy on benefits. I mean, Farage just said he's going to stop benefits for immigrants. That's long overdue. Anyone who comes into this country who's never put a penny into the system, probably doesn't speak English, just turns up, plugs into our welfare system, milks it for every penny it's worth. I mean, literally billions upon billions upon billions is being spent on immigrants. And the indigenous people, the British people, we are now being excluded from our own welfare state. We are now, I mean, they're talking about Oxford and Cambridge going down the league table, for universities, standards. The reason is they become woke, and they're now putting immigrants above British candidates. This is right across our society. It's absolutely disgraceful. And because we haven't had any true political representation to challenge this, it's gone unchecked and it's got extreme now. And you can't avoid noticing it, Now, the Tories have got Kemi in charge. Kemi is from the Yoruba tribe in Nigeria. She's a Yoruban Nigerian. She's not British at all. She hasn't got one drop of British blood in her body. I'm not holding that against her, but where does her interest lie? And you can see that the very first thing that Kemi did in Parliament was to remove the cap on Nigerian students coming to Britain, the numbers. And she boasted about that in Parliament in her speech. She said, I've worked hard to remove the cap to allow many more Nigerian students to come to Britain, to study in Britain, and to settle in Britain. That's where her priority lies. And yes, she's the leader of the Tory party, the opposition. It's
Can I just
absolutely disgraceful. Go on, John.
can I just say something? So Tommy Robinson, Stephen Yaxley Lennon, Tommy 10 names. Everyone says that. Remember, Kemi Badenoch is not her name, right? So when I don't want people saying Kemi Badenoch. If they can't say Tommy Robinson, you don't say Kemi Badenoch. What you have to say as Alu Kemi, Alu Funto, and Diogo Badenoch. That's what you got to say. That is her name. That is her name. So I don't want anyone saying Kemi Badenoch. Her name is Alu Kemi, Alu Funtu, Adogo Badenoch. That's the name, and it's simple. If people can't say Tommy Robinson's changed name, then they've got to be able to speak about Kemi Badenoch. Just thought I'd get that in, Paul.
No, it's a good point, but I mean, the issue is the people who are in power and just not represent the British people. They're not interested in the British people. They're not progressing our nation in any way. They're on this game to undermine us and destroy us. And the British people, we've got to wake up. We've got to stop pretending. We've got to stop pretending that we can just go on the same old way, the same old routine, and things will turn out okay. We've reached a place now where there's no more comfort zone. And we've got to wake up. We've got to fight our corner. Because I'll tell you what, the Muslims are organised. You see that? They're organised in the mosques. They're organised to vote politically. They're organised. The Hindus are organised. They have their political clout. The Africans are coming here. They've got organised. They've got lawyers representing them. They've got politicians who are willing to speak for them. And it's we, the British people, in our own nation, who are now pushed to the margin because we have not asserted ourselves. We've been too nice. We've allowed this idea that somehow we should not be over assertive or even assertive at all to take hold. But we're denying our own children a future. We've gone from being the people who rule the world to the biggest suckers on the planet. And people are just sucking us dry now. We're being exploited and abused at every turn. They're robbing us blind, and it's starting to hurt. And we're suffering. Our opportunities are going. Our way of life is being taken away from us. We could incorporate a certain number of immigrants, but it's the numbers now have got out of control. We're looking at 20 million now in this country, and it's growing rapidly. The number of sort of indigenous British people gone from 95% to 85% to 75%. We're heading down to 2/3 to 65%. There's still 50 million of us. And of course, there's, I don't know, maybe 5 million mixed race people. But there's foreign people with no British blood in their veins. They're taking over our cities, and they're not British. And our cities will therefore not be British. So if you go to the Muslim areas of Birmingham or Blackburn or Bradford, they're like a Muslim cities, Muslim colonies in this land, and they're expanding and they're bringing them in. You see, I was in Ireland last week, and I was speaking to a guy in Monaghan, and I said, beautiful county this. I said, has it been impacted by immigration? And he said, well, if you go to Clones, one of the big towns, well, not big, but one of the towns of Monaghan, he said it's a lot of Africans there now, and they work in the factories, and they're taking the social housing and stuff. I said, what do you feel about that? He said, well, to be honest, we have not very little problems with them. They just get on with their own lives. They're building their own communities. I said, but you realise they're just going to keep coming. It's not going to be, 5,000 Africans and everything just stops at that. It's going to be 10,000. There's going to be 10,000 Pakistani Muslims. There's going to be 5,000 Indian Hindus. I said, before you know it, you'll be outnumbered in your own county. And then they'll have possession not only of the social housing, but also they'll be at the front of the queue for every public service, for every resource. They'll have the mayors of the towns. They'll be setting the agenda, and they'll just overwhelm you. I said, you can't allow people, you've got to have borders. You allow the people in who you want in, You don't just allow people to overwhelm you in your own country. That is absolutely insanity. This is what Donald Trump spoke about. He said, this is the path to hell. This is the path of self-destruction. Wake up, Europe. Wake up, the people of the West. Start to assert yourselves. Speak out. We have free speech in this country. We have liberty. We have the right of association. Come and join the National Housing Party. Join a political force. Make your presence felt. And we can save this country. And I think people now are starting to wake up. Characters are emerging. And, this is the time for action. Now is the time, because now Labour are on the ropes and we're going to knock them out. We're going to take control. John?
We're going to knock them out and we're going to take control. We certainly are, guys. Thank you, Jackie, in the chat. Mark Williams, good evening, guys. Tommy Trump, Gerald's in the chat. Thank you, Gerald. Thank you very much. Pat's in the chat there, I think. Yeah, he is. Good. Thank you, Pat. Hope you're all right. Madeline, White Knight. Good evening, White Knight. Bexy, good evening. Thank you very much for tuning in. Guys, please subscribe if you haven't. Please like if you haven't already. Share my stuff. Go to my YouTube. Look through some of my other videos. There's lots on there to pick and comment on. A lot of stuff. I think next week we're going to go talking about the digital ID, Paul, I think, because I've heard a lot about it the past few weeks off a lot of people and the stuff being said in the news. So I think we'll go down the digital ID route next week. And I might even try and get someone on. I'll have to go to their house and do the stream from there, but I'll try and get someone who likes to talk about that. But thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. This is Party Talk. My name's John Lawrence. The other geezer there is a mighty Paul Rimmer. If you're around in Liverpool Sunday, you might see me. The Labour conference starts this week. I'm hooked up to meet up with some veterans, actually, because they're protesting against over the Northern Ireland
prosecutions,
prosecutions. The protesting against. So. Very interesting thing that, and they're not going to let that go, the government. And there was big protests last year over Dennis, a guy with blonde hair who was being prosecuted. He passed away, unfortunately. Joe and Dion went supporting him. But so that's what I'm doing at weekend. Saturday, obviously, we've got the Victoria Hotel, and I'm going to tell everyone now, a 24-year-old lad was picked up by the Sting squad trying to meet young girls, and he was from that hotel and he's only been here 2 months. So it's really on a knife edge now. Now I've emailed councillors and only one councillor has been down. If they want to avoid trouble, the councillors need to engage with that community or them communities. Otherwise, I can't see nothing but trouble coming on the horizon. I don't want any trouble. I'd rather it be dealt with peacefully, but that's a warning to them 12 councillors. Only one of them's come down to see us, which was Abdul Wahid of the Oldham Group. Every other councillor has ignored us, and you're probably calling us them buzzword names. It's coming to a crutch, guys. If you want to see scenes of what Epping's like, then just ignore us. If you want to stop this, you need to engage with the communities, which you're not doing. Thank you very much, everyone. My name's John Lawrence. This is Party Talk. Good night. See you next week. The digital ID.